Okay, we are here. We are live. It is Tuesday again. Yeah, I don't know if I'm ever gonna get a handle on posting outside of these lives, but here I am. I'm here every Tuesday. At least I'm here. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being in my world. I really appreciate all the love that I get on these posts, and the people who show up and share their stories with me, and tell me that the things I'm saying is helpful for them. So I'm glad if you're one of those people. And thank you, and thank you for being here. Today, I think I would like to talk about planning a song, and not just for the reasons of like being able to tell the story with a song, but also for your own vocal health. I think it's really important to know that what you are planning to do has a purpose and is not just how you think this song should be sung based on the person who sang it originally, you know. So we're talking a little bit about making it your own, whatever song you're singing. If it's a cover, great. If it's your own song, of course it's gonna be your own. But I also want to talk about the building of the story of the song, which I think is very important. So like some people, and myself included, have a tendency to come right out the gate. Like they want to impress, they want to show people that you can sing and keep people listening. Like totally, of course, that makes so much sense. But instead of showing that with volume and power and overdoing, how can we show that with what we don't do instead? Like, I think it's so overrated to start out a song very light and to not just to wait to show them what you can do, but also just to save your own vocal dollars. You know, there's this concept of mental budget, emotional budget, your vocal budget as well. Like you don't want to blow it all in one place. You don't want to blow it all at the beginning of the song, because then when you get to the big climaxy moment, the big diva moment, you're not going to have as much left as you wanted. Um, which is something I think about a lot as a recording artist, which I've been doing in my little vocal blanket booth for a couple years now. I try and, of course, I don't do this perfectly every time, but I try and make sure I'm warming up into the song. So, like, I don't do the big belty chorus until I'm feeling warm. And then I don't do it more than 5 or 10 times, because I know that that's all the vocal dollars I have for that session or that day. And then after it's done, if I feel like it's still not right, I don't push myself past that point. I don't push it so that I'm doing the chorus at the very end of the session either, so that I know I will be more tired. So thinking about this within the context of a song or within the context of a set list that you're doing, I think it's very important to think about what strategy you're using in order to keep yourself healthy, as well as the audience interested. And bonus, it'll help you be able to sing for longer, stronger, all those things, faster, better, quicker, you know, all those things. The Daft Punk song. I think we just want to impress so much that so many of us just like, boom, pow, get pedal to the metal right out the gate for a song. So we start out the first verse with like all the power and all the belt and all the volume. And then we get to the second verse of the song and we're like, ooh, I don't have anywhere to go from here. You know, number one, storytelling wise, emotionally. Like I already started out at like 75%. I can go to 85, but then I don't have anywhere to even go for the chorus. You know, I want the chorus to be the big moment, and you need contrast for that. And I talked about contrast a lot last week, which I think is a very important concept as an artist, whether you're a visual artist or a musical artist. Contrast is so much. It's very important to think about. Like you need, it's very windy today. I don't know if you can hear like my doors and windows rattling. It's crazy. kind of unsettling a little bit. But I think it's so good to know how your contrast fits within the context of a whole song. So like, depending on what genre it is, of course, like if you're starting out with a big belty musical theater finale number, like you're going to have to start from a big beltier place, and that's fine. But just make sure you're warming up a good amount into that. Like if you're starting your practice with that song and all of a sudden afterwards you feel tired, we can kind of guess why, right? Because you didn't allow yourself time to ease into your vocal usage for the day. And also, it's probably important to look at, am I doing that after I already sang another big belty song that takes a lot of other vocal dollars, and then I'm trying to do this other big belty song within the same practice period? Like, that's a lot of spending that you're doing on your poor little teeny little muscles in here. Do you know how tiny these muscles are? They're so tiny. You have to be really careful not to overdo them. You know, like, I don't know if any of you are in your mid 30s and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I sneezed and I pulled the muscle in my neck. Like, things happen easily, and you have to just be careful, and you have to know when you are doing too much and not enough warm up in to get into. I'm not saying you have to like warm up to get into your day if you're sneezing, but because that stuff just happens and it's unfortunate. But that happened to me last week. Happens all the time. But as a singer, it is, I don't want to scare you, but it is easy to overdo. It is easy to throw yourself into a note, and then all of a sudden 10 minutes later you're like, ooh, that note feels way different than it did 10 minutes ago. What did I do? It feels more scratchy, more tight in there. Like, and then the next day you wake up and you're like, ooh, I have half a voice today. So these are really important things to think about on your vocal budget. Yeah, totally. Mid 30s, that's when it happens, I tell you. So I think so many of us could use to pull back a whole lot, you know, and this doesn't apply to everybody. There are some people who come at it from the exact opposite direction. Like, they hold back and they don't give us any volume and any ease. And so what I tell them is like, okay, you have a bigger vocal budget than you think. Like, if you come at it from the right place in your body, like, and if you come at it from a place of, like we talk about all the time, being intentional, being committed. You don't necessarily have to be confident about what you're about to sing, but you do need to be committed, and using your whole body and using your abdominal muscles instead of just sticking in here, singing messy, getting into that practice so that you can feel like every note doesn't have to be perfect all the time, because that gets us into a lot of trouble also physically. Like, this is the opposite problem from people that go too hard too fast and then they don't have anywhere to go. These other people can be so cautious and so perfectionist that they hold back on every note, and they are trying to fit every note into a certain box, and they need it to be perfect and good and not mess up ever. And that can cause extra tension in here as well. And it shows up in different people in different places. Some people, it's these extrinsic vocal muscles. Some people, it's their jaw gets tight. Some people, their tongue really wants to help out. That gets really tight and pulls back a lot. So I think it's good to know your tendencies, know what kind of person you are. If you are this kind of person who is a hesitating kind of a person, it's also okay. It's not a reflection on you. As I talk about a lot, this has so much to do with your nervous system defaults and your nervous system states and your patterns. The first kind of person I would say is like a fighter, right? They're a fighter. They go for it. When they think there's going to be a problem note, they just push everything they have into it. These other type of people, the hesitation-oriented people, they are more of like a fighter or a flighter or a freezer type of people. That's their default in life, in work, in relationships, and a lot of things. And that's how you show up for yourself as a singer. This is, of course, not 100% true for everybody. If it's not you, don't worry about it. But if you are this kind of person that as you go into a song, you're so afraid of getting a wrong note that you don't allow hardly any volume. You stay right here and you go, ah, and you're so worried about getting the wrong notes that you make sure you are manipulating every note, and you're adjusting, and it gets a little wobbly because you're not allowing the note to be what it is. You're assuming that it's going to be wrong before it even comes out. So you're adjusting and manipulating, and then it gets wobbly, and then the pitch goes either down or up in whichever way you don't want it to go in the first place, because you're so in your head about sticking in this little box, you know? So these kind of people, we need to find a way for you to feel safe, first and foremost, because that's the reason behind all of this, right? Yeah, it totally makes sense that if you're a fighter in other parts of your life, you're that kind of a person, Brown, because it's how you show up. It's just how your biology works, you know. And it's not your fault. It's not like your failure, but it's something to look at. And when you notice your patterns, you can start to choose a different pathway because you're on the outside of it instead of on the inside and stuck in that pattern and feeling like it's just what you have to do because it's who you are and how you are, and you can't get out of that. But this is the great part about this. Even though this is your biology working with your nervous system states and your nervous system patterns, it's trainable. Everything is trainable. So many things are trainable. Your human body is malleable. It is so able to change. So I think it's really important to just know all these things about yourself, and then think about how to plan out your song accordingly. Like if you are a hesitaty kind of a person, it's maybe a fun experiment to try, okay, I'm going to see if I can open my mouth 20% more on this first part. I'm going to see if I can take a 20% bigger breath. I'm going to see if I can bend my knees and see if that helps me get a little more volume, a little more out of here, and see if I can start off with a little more looseness, a little more messiness, a little more volume than I would have tried to before. But before you do any of that gamification for yourself, you need to make sure you're safe, right? So the things that help me feel safe and a lot of other people are co-regulation. Number one, find a person you feel safe with, give them a 20-second, 30-second hug before you go to sing. If you don't have those people around, give yourself a 20-second, 30-second hug. These points are biologically activating your safety. They're reminding your body that if you're in this position, you can't be in danger, right? If you were in danger, you'd be running from a tiger, right? So this kind of thing can be helpful. Depending on what state you're in, a little bit of light movement. So a little bit of light stretching, light yoga, light shaking. Things can just remind your body that you are in a place of safety instead of a place of, oh, I gotta book it because I'm in trouble, because that's what your brain is always looking for, right? It's predicting the problem areas that are about to come at you. It's just trying to keep you safe, right? It's scanning for danger. And if you've ever felt in danger or unsafe, or if you've had people criticize your singing before, then singing and showing up is gonna feel unsafe for you. That's what turns into your gremlin, right? It's like, hey, guess what? This has been a problem before. You better do better, otherwise it's gonna be painful, right? That's what turns into your gremlin. So just the fact that your gremlin shows up should be a sign to you that I'm feeling unsafe, right? My body's feeling unsafe, something's wrong. So I either change my environment, change who I'm around, or I change the internal environment, which you can do both if you want to. There's many different ways to do that. Yeah, I am definitely a fighter. Totally, yeah. You can usually pinpoint exactly what relative has said that stuff to you and who's turning into that gremlin voice. I love that. Yeah, totally. I'm a fighter, so my default is to just push and overdo and overreact and defend and there's just this kind of energy, right? Anytime I feel like I'm about to mess up, I just go into anger mode, and I can fix this, and I can manipulate this note into doing it better, which is why I often start out songs too strong, because when I'm in powerful, bigger volume places, I feel less likely to mess up. Because with so much power coursing through my voice, how could I possibly mess up, right? That's not always the case, though, and sometimes we have to just look at this pattern from a place of, maybe my pattern is trying to be preemptive and trying to, ahead of the game, get me to be safe, even though I haven't experienced any actual physical danger before that, So if I'm about to approach a song and I recognize this feeling of, I gotta punch it, right? That is my default pattern of fight. And I know I'm about to go into this place of, I'm going to overdo because I'm scared of not doing well enough, So if you are also a fighter, it can be really good to do some of this. Ruby Rose calls it the gravity blanket exercise. Give yourself a nice big hug because your body is in a little bit of unsafety. And of course, you're not going to erase this, right? It's not something that is a problem, but we want to get it to a place where you can perform and it won't totally derail you and make you run off the stage in a pile, because that's how it feels if we go all the rest of the way with it, if we start to get into shame mode about it and like, oh God, I'm about to go into fight mode. Like, I hate when I'm in fight mode. I'm an angry person. I don't like who I am. It's a problem. It means I'm not as good of a singer. I'm going to overdo. I'm going to push too hard. I'm going to crack. All of this fully understandable thoughts just continue to show up. It's like a vicious cycle, So the more we shame ourselves for what we're feeling, the more we get deeper into the things that we don't want to be doing. Because that's how the brain works. Like, your safety mechanisms are desperately trying to keep you safe. And if you feel like where you're about to go, nervous system wise, is a dangerous place, if you're judging it, it's going to do everything possible to try and keep you from going there. But the only mechanism that it knows is the same freaking thing, right? So if I'm trying to go into fight because I'm scared of hitting this big note or something, if I'm just going to like, okay, here I go, I'm going to get everything I have, and then I feel these muscles tightening up, I'm going to go, if I have the knowledge about it, which I do now, sometimes my brain goes, here I go into fight. I better not do that because fight is a bad place to be. You better not. And then I go into fight to try and fight myself out of fight, which is crazy. But that's how our brain works. That's how our nervous system is, how our biology is made, because the only thing it knows is keep you alive, right? So yeah, I think you can be both. Absolutely. That's totally true. In different situations, also different patterns, based on what you have experienced in your life. And all of it is okay. It's all good. I think the thing that we're trying to avoid is the shame, right? So how I usually would approach a song if I'm very nervous is to freaking give it everything I got. But that doesn't work for everybody. Sometimes people show up, as I said, these other types of people who are more flighters, more freezers, they will show up to a song and be, oh God, I'm nervous. In their body, everything starts to lock up and they start to go, I don't know if I can make any sound right now. So I'm going to feel like even more fear, right? That's where your body goes, I'm closing up. And then you're trying to flee from the flee. You're trying to freeze from the freeze. And of course, that's not going to work out because it's just adding more of that onto that. So the more we accept where we are, the more your body will start to release a little bit from that, For those of you that are freezers or flighters, I think what I have experienced with some of my students who are this way is, number one, notice it, unshame it, say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. I am starting to freeze up. I'm very nervous. I don't know what's about to come out of my mouth. And number one, with somebody else, if you can, go, hey, this is how I'm feeling. and hopefully if they're a safe person and they know stuff about this, you can teach them. They'll go, okay, great, I'm here. What can I do? And all you have to say is, I don't know, but a hug sounds great. Something like that. So you can co-regulate so your body can start to feel a little safer. If that starts to make the snow globe settle a little bit, then maybe start with a little light movement, like a little bit of stretching. Maybe just like roll your head, just a teeny little bit, like even sometimes just wiggling your fingers can help you move out of that. And then maybe you'll start to feel yourself sliding back up into fight, and you'll start to get a little bit of that activation going, like maybe a little anger, maybe a little emotion, maybe some tears come. That's good. That means you're moving in the right direction, right? And then maybe it'll feel a little more comfortable to do some shaking and some bigger movements. But this is all a thing that you really have to know about yourself. And it can be so hard to sit there and go, this is not a problem. I'm still going to sing this song the way I've practiced it. But I know my body feels different, and that has to be okay. Because there's not a lot we can do in that moment except for these tools. And we're never looking for zero dysregulation, right? We're always looking for just a little release from the total stiffness and derailment that these have shown us in the past, So when we're talking about saving your vocal dollars or using your budget, sometimes if you're nervous, you don't have as much of a budget as you did 2 hours ago when you were practicing at home. So that's another thing to think about as well. Like if you're tighter naturally when you're nervous and you're about to go sing in front of somebody, it can be really interesting to think about, okay, this is how I would have done the song, but now I'm feeling like I have a little bit less budget because I'm using it all on my nervous energy. Again, not a problem, but I'm going to maybe start out the song in a little different way, right? If you're a fighter, you may start it out really chill. If you're a freezer, you might start it out with a little longer intro so you can feel into that belly breath that you've been working on. You can start out by just talking to the audience and saying, hey, look, I'm really nervous right now. I've got a lot of shakiness happening. Can we take a couple deep breaths together? That can be really helpful because so much of our shame comes from what we think other people are thinking about our nervous system state, So if you are one of those people that are hesitating, that's feel stuck and feel like you have to do it perfectly so nothing comes out, allow yourself to start from whatever place you are. But number one, make sure you feel safe. If you are feeling like you want to run away, like you want to vomit, there's some safety things that are happening, and you know yourself well enough that you know what helps settle the snow globe, right? And any of those tools that I was just talking about, co-regulation being number one, will be the thing that I hope you can start practicing so that you start coming at performance, or even just practicing. Like sometimes practicing can be nerve-wracking for people, even if nobody else can hear you. You can feel all these same things just by saying, okay, I'm going to sing this whole song. This song that I love, that I revere the people who sang it, that I want to do as well as. There's a lot of internal pressure that we put on that. So again, be strategic. Don't allow yourself to do everything from out the gate, right? Just don't give everything. Allow yourself to ease in, because that's how we adapt to anything in life. If you got a new job, you wouldn't expect yourself to do it perfectly the first couple weeks. You got to ease yourself in, right? You're doing little tasks at a time. You're being trained. You're doing maybe one more than you did yesterday because you got that one down okay. And then if you didn't, you ask for help. Same thing here. You allow yourself to ease into the song, knowing that the priority is ease and not sound. Again, this is something that I have to remind every single student ever, and myself constantly. Stop focusing on the sound, focus on the feeling. So much, because when we're focused on sound, there's so much comparison that happens. If you're a fighter, you're like, I'm going to make myself sound like Ariana Grande. If you're a freezer, you're like, oh, I'm never going to sound like Ariana Grande. I better give up now. right? So it shows up in different ways for different people and different patterns and depending on your experience in life. But just keep in mind that you have a say in your own safety, and you have a say in how you show up in every moment, and you have a say even if your nervous system feels like it's taking over. You are the person that is driving your voice. It doesn't have to be a gremlin, you know? So as you're planning out your song, keep all these things in mind. You know, this is why warm-ups are so important. Number one, to save your vocal health. Number two, to let your nervous system ease into singing. Honestly, like, we don't talk about that very often. Like, voice teachers always like, do your warm-ups or else. But nobody talks about the fact that, like, hey, you'll probably feel better and do better and be happier with yourself, and it'll be a positive feedback cycle if you warm up and ease your body in to your singing practice. Hopefully that was on topic. There's so many things that come into play when I talk about this. I always end up talking about the nervous system because it is everything. But yeah, just think about your budget and how you show up to your singing self. Hopefully that's helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to message me. I'm always here. What do I have to say? I had something to tell you, and I don't remember what it was. I am starting a Vocal Magic 2. So if you have been in my Vocal Magic before, you are eligible. Or if you have done like 6 months or so of lessons with me, you're probably eligible. Reach out and let me know. Also, I'm thinking about opening up Enchanted Voice again, just for a little bit this time. It'll be at a higher price point, just a little bit. So if you didn't get in the first time and you're curious and you're like, okay, how do I take lessons without spending a lot of money every month? This is for you. It's for you. I made it for you. I love you very much, and I'll see you very soon.